Hey friends, it's Elizabeth Morse with Cooking Out of the Box. Happy New Year, almost. I am going to talk to you today about traditional foods for the new year that are thought to bring good luck. I figured we could all use it this year, right? 2020 has been kind of a drag here in Indy. I feel like I've been living halfway between the Twilight Zone and the movie Groundhog Day. I'm sure many of you can relate. So I thought it would be fun to talk about the traditions of foods that we cook for the new year in this country, and kind of give you a little bit of info about what I found as I've kind of been asking people. In fact, this week I went to Facebook and put on my personal feed a question for people asking, what is it that you cook? What is it that you enjoy with your family to celebrate the new year? And most people responded with foods that they think are known to be lucky. And the ones that kind of kept popping up out of the many responses I got were black-eyed peas, also called Hoppin' John in some parts of the country, and greens, and that mostly was collards or cabbage. And so I thought that today we would talk about why those foods are thought to be lucky, just kind of a little fun thing, and then we'll move to the kitchen and I will show you how to prepare them. They are both super easy. We're really going to focus on black-eyed peas because that's the main part of the meal, but I love collards, so I thought I would show you how I make those as well. Okay, so here's the tradition. Black-eyed peas on New Year's Day is time-honored in this country, and there are a few different reasons why they're associated with luck on New Year's Day. The first story that I came across began in the Civil War when Union soldiers raided the Confederate Army's food supply. They left behind only this bean, probably because Northerners didn't really grow black-eyed peas and probably didn't really know what they were and what to do with them. But at any rate, the Southern boys did, and they got to keep their beans and felt like it was super lucky that they had food left after that happened. So that's the first tradition that I came across. The next theory celebrates African American history in this country, and it describes, back January of 1863, newly freed slaves were celebrating the Emancipation Proclamation, and this was something that they made dishes out of, the black-eyed peas, because it was one of the few foods that they had available to them, and really high in protein, and also can be super delicious. So that's the second theory of why these guys are lucky. And then the third is actually one with an international history. It dates back to ancient Egypt, and it celebrates the idea that the vegetable was, again, there, really easy to grow and available to even the very, very poorest people. And it was a sign of humility, and it was thought that if you were going to eat this food and show your humility to the gods, that you would be blessed. So gosh, I sure hope that one of those stories holds true and that we can all eat a bunch of black-eyed peas and have a super prosperous, awesome year. Let's see, greens. So greens go great with black-eyed peas, and most people are serving their black-eyed peas with mustard greens, collard greens, or cabbage. Again, I love collards, so that's what I'm going to focus on. But the whole idea behind greens being lucky is that it's thought to symbolize money and prosperity, like green folding leaves, green folding money. And there actually are some traditions rooted in the South, again, that greens can be hung by the door to ward off evil spirits. So if you do decide to cook and you've got some extra, can't hurt, right? Maybe hang up a few outside your door and hope for the best. So again, I picked up some of these black-eyed peas at the store yesterday. I actually have one bag that's soaked overnight. They were about $1.50 for a pound. And like most legumes, black-eyed peas, besides being delicious, are really high in fiber, high in protein, and low in fat. So that makes them a great protein choice for your family, a healthy one. And we'll get started cooking in just a few minutes. We'll transition to the kitchen, and I will show you how to make them delicious. All right, y'all, I'm in the kitchen. I've got all of our ingredients ready for black-eyed peas, and I thought I would show them to you. And then I'm also going to post, as I always do, a list of ingredients so that it's easier to refer to if you need to go to the grocery. So first thing we need is our black-eyed peas, and as you can see, I've got them soaking in water. I dropped them in last night and just let them sit in water on the counter overnight. I have got chicken broth, 32 ounces. You can certainly use bouillon if you have it, and just chicken flavored. I've got diced tomatoes. You need 1 14-ounce can. I've got bacon. So you've got a couple choices. I like to use bacon instead of ham. The actual recipe that I use calls for both, but I just prefer bacon. So I'm going to use double the amount of bacon and skip the ham, but really you should have a cup of diced ham if you've got it, as well as 6 slices of cooked bacon. Onion, garlic, salt and pepper, and oregano. I've got a little oregano left, as you can see here from my garden. I just ran outside and grabbed it because I don't have any dried, but dried is certainly fine. And we're gonna go ahead and move over to the stove and cook up this bacon first, because the easiest thing about this recipe, every single thing we're gonna dump in the crock pot or slow cooker and just let it go all day. So I just like to have my bacon crispy, so I will prepare that in advance, and we'll go over and do that now. Okay, everybody, I've got 12 strips of bacon. I'm going to go ahead and cut that up before I fry it, just because that's how I like to do it. You can certainly cook your bacon first, get it nice and crispy, and after it's done cooking, then you can chop it up. That's totally up to you, but this is just the way that I like to do it. I find that it cooks a little bit faster, that the fat renders out because it's in smaller pieces. So that's what it looks like. And I'm going to head over to the stove and get it frying. All right, everybody, I've got my cast iron skillet here. Nothing fancy. I'm going to turn on the stove to about medium high. I've got my cut up bacon. And again, I have way more bacon than the official recipe calls for, but because I like bacon and not so much ham, I'm going to substitute the ham in my dish and just use this whole package of bacon, which is about 12 slices. And that's certainly up to you. Some people like sausage, some people like ham hocks. So whatever you've got, it's pretty versatile. And as long as you've got a little bit of pork fat in it, it'll be super delicious. Okay, starting to sizzle a little bit. We're going to let that go and come back to it in just a moment. Okay, everybody, I'm sure you can hear the bacon sizzling in the background. While that's cooking, I'm going to go ahead and cut up this onion. If you've got a crock pot, I would definitely consider using it for this dish. That's how I'm going to do mine. You can certainly put it on the stove on low and watch it all day. I guess it doesn't need to be watched super closely, but because they are beans, you want to make sure that the temperature doesn't get too hot and that they don't stick, because then you'll have a mess. But I love this because, as I told y'all, I have my beans that have soaked all evening. I'm going to go ahead and dump those into the crock pot. I'm going to go ahead and add this onion that I just cut. I've got chicken broth. That's going to go in. Another great thing to do with this, so I like to do my collards on the side, and I actually canned a ton of them this year and have them ready to go. I was going to show you all how to make them, but what I found in my research is that a lot of people actually like their greens in their beans. So if you've got collards, you can chop them up real fine, throw them in. That'll be perfect because they do take a long time to cook. And I'm going to go ahead and put my garlic in, oregano, pepper,
And then I'm going to go easy on the salt. I'm going to put about half a teaspoon in to start. And it depends on how salty your broth is. You may not need any more. You may decide towards the end of the cooking time that when you've added your ham or your pork, that's salty enough you don't need more, but you might. That is plenty for now though. And then your tomatoes. Okay, so you can see how easy that was. It took basically no time. If you had greens, you could chop those up, plop them in, and then the last thing that we're going to add is the pork, and then we're going to set our crock pot to a low temperature and cook it for 6 to 8 hours. Okay, everybody, last step. Wanted to show you one thing. I went over to grab some collards that I had canned just to show you all what that looks like. These are from my garden this summer, and I could just open this. These were pressure canned, and they've got garlic and onions and a little bit of ham and some spices. I could just open this and dump it out, heat it up, and serve it with my beans. But what I decided to do is it reminded me when I was looking that I do have some frozen collards still in my freezer. And I thought, you know what, I'm just going to go that route, and it's going to be like one pot dish. So this is about, 3 cups of collard greens. And I'm going to just dump that into my crock pot. It's getting pretty full, but as you can see, they're frozen, so they're going to soften up pretty fast here. And this is going to be great. I'll show y'all what it looks like when it's finished. But I probably will make some cornbread muffins, maybe, or maybe just a loaf of cornbread. And that's going to be great because as this cooks down, it's going to have some really delicious broth in there, which would be great to soak up. Here's the bacon. So I'm going to go ahead and dump that in. I'm not going to put in all that grease, but I am going to let a little bit of it get in there because remember the beans are super lean. Oops. All right. Good deal. So that's really all there is to it. That took virtually no time. It really didn't take much prep work. The time is definitely going to be in the cooking. So we've got it all in there. I'm going to put the lid on, and I'll come back and show you all what it looks like when it's done. Hey y'all, our beans have been cooking all day. The house smells amazing, and I'm going to show you what they look like in just a minute. But before we do that, I thought I would go ahead and whip up some cornbread. It's super easy. I think you probably have most of these ingredients on hand. You're going to need baking powder, salt, a couple of eggs, 1/4 cup of sugar, 1 cup of flour, 1 cup of milk. Let's see what else. 1/4 cup of shortening. I like to use butter, and a cup of cornmeal. Super easy. We're going to dump the flour, the sugar. Oops. We're going to do a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. We're going to do 4 teaspoons of baking powder, which is kind of a lot, but I like the cornbread to be nice and fluffy. 2, 3, 4. I kind of make this a lot, so I'm pretty sure that I am right on with my measurements there, but it doesn't have to be totally exact. I'm going to add the milk, the butter, which I melted, and then I'm just going to crack the eggs. I like to crack them off to the side in case I get a shell in. It makes it a little easier to get rid of them if you haven't dumped it in. I have the oven set on 425, and after I get this all mixed up, we're going to put that in for about 15 minutes, and I think it makes a great accompaniment to our black-eyed peas. Okay, so super easy. That literally took me, what, like a minute to get together. This is what it looks like, and I'm going to just bake mine. You can bake it in whatever you like. Some people like to do it in a cast iron skillet. I like to just put it in a glass baking dish. Sometimes I make it into muffins. I'm going to just use a little cooking spray. You could grease the pan with whatever you've got. Just give it one more good mix. Make sure that it's well blended. And then we're going to pour that into the pan. And I should also point out, sometimes, I usually always have sugar, but sometimes I love using honey. I like the flavor. So if you prefer to use honey, or even maple syrup would be great in place of the sugar, you can certainly do that. All right, so that's it. I'm gonna give it a good jiggle there, stick it in the oven, and I'm gonna check it about 15 minutes, but it may need 20, and that's it. Hey y'all, I wish that you could smell how great my house smells right now. This dish that we've been working on, our black-eyed peas, has been cooking all day. The house smells amazing. So I'm gonna lift the lid and let you all take a look at what it looks like. Our cornbread is in the oven, and once it comes out, I'm gonna serve them together. Whew, very steamy. Looks amazing. Some people like to blend their peas just a little bit. If you have that inclination to make it a creamier dish, that's fine. I like it like this. You can see the collards look amazing. We've got all this pretty broth in here. I don't know if you can see. Looks great. I'm going to take a little bite, see if we need to adjust our seasoning. Remember, we had a lot of salty foods that went into this dish. The bacon, we just put a little bit of salt because we also had chicken broth, and there's some salt in that. Perfect. I would not add a thing. That's up to you. I hope you all enjoy this dish, and I hope you have a super, super lucky and prosperous 2021. Bye.